One of the key aspects of any roguelite is to have a wide variety of abilities, and for Trix N Treaty, we have a total of one. Yeah, better get a start on those. I'm just kidding. Trix N Treaty has more than one ability in it. It has three. So that's why during the later half of October, I added a bunch of different abilities to the game. Why is in the later half, you might ask? I mean, I hope you're asking, since the later half specifically sounds kind of weird, but whatever. Well, there's a game dev challenge called Devtober that I participated in. I have more info on that in the first part where I worked on enemy design, so go check that out if you want to know more about it. The main design pillar I have with the abilities is to make them versatile, mainly by giving them synergy with other abilities. In a lot of other games, I love being able to figure out combinations for using an arsenal of moves. And the more abilities that synergize with each other, the more players are incentivized to use more abilities, instead of just sticking with, one for the whole game. So for day 15 of Devtober, right after designing a hand enemy, I started working on revising an old grabby ability. Originally, I had done the sprites and the bouncing code for the hand, but I only programmed the grabbing part on day 15. The hand can grab enemies and launch them into the player for follow-up attacks. Unlike some of the other abilities, the arm doesn't have direct synergy with other ones, but the arm serves the purpose of being a combo starter or being something the player can combo into. For day 16, I reanimated the arm ability. While I kind of like the idea of the pumpkin arm, I think that making the arm more ghostly made more sense as a projectile. Mostly because there's already an arcing pumpkin projectile in the game, and that would be kind of confusing to have two of them, so yeah. I like the ghostly design because the ghost tail makes the projectile easy to follow. On day 17, I finished the arm ability by making a throwing animation. I needed to make the animation long enough so the player can make setups with other abilities, and I thought it looked funny having enemies getting dunked. For day 18, I started programming and animating the echolocation projectile. I wanted to have a bat ability in the game because, if you weren't aware, Trix N Treaty is a Halloween-themed game, and I kind of like the idea of it acting like a boomerang since bats echolocate. And on top of that, the bat's form has become more refined over time. In the mid-19th century, baseball batters were Wait a minute. When did Dracula turn into these? I don't know. Maybe it's just some localization issue on the Wikipedia page, but I will admit I wasn't quite satisfied with how the projectile traveled on day 18, so on day 19, I did more programming for the echolocator and made it so it only returns to the player after colliding with an enemy or a wall. When it is returning to Trix, the player can kite the bat and try to hit enemies. I'm not sure if I am completely sold on this idea, namely with having the bat bounce off of something. I feel like it's a little weird, but I am a big fan of how the player can kite the bat, and it lets the player get fancy with how they hit enemies, and that makes the projectile feel more creative. It's kind of funny because the code I used for the bat was literally just the same code I used for the gargoyle enemy I designed earlier, and I'm a little surprised it worked this well. One thing the bat ability lacked was synergy with other abilities, so on day 20 I added bat plats. Another design pillar I had with coming up with the abilities is making them time themed, since Trix is a time management roguelite. But actually you might not know that because I didn't do the pitch at the beginning of this part. Whatever, it's a time management roguelite. And I had this old ability, this bubble, that didn't really have a lot of synergy. If the bubble pops during daytime, it would place down a blank platform which the player can interact with by using the ink ability. The echolocator turns these blank platforms into bouncy ones when activated. I like this because it plays around with the whole time management aspect of the game and lets players have more options if they want to use more daytime abilities. For the record, I don't want the time management bit to be too restrictive and cheesy. It'll be just enough so players can get creative with how they build. So the player can use any ability whenever, they just might synergize more at different times of day. Of course, two abilities still have synergy by comboing into each other. I'm just referring to direct synergies with the whole bat-plat actions, or yeah. You might be thinking, this gives the game groundwork for daytime abilities, so what about the nighttime ones? Well, on day 21, I started developing star sprinkles. I base these projectiles around those little star candies, you know, those funny little ones. This is kind of weird to draw the sprite for because I wanted them to look pointy but not super spiky, and I kind of like how they turned out. On day 22, I give the star sprinkles a special effect at night. When star sprinkles travel a certain distance, they place down a star which other abilities can interact with. Like the bubble, these can be used whenever, they just don't place down stars during the day. I mean, have you ever seen a star in daylight? I bet you haven't, because I mean, I haven't. Oh shoot! Star in daylight! On day 23, I started animating another ability. I loved making the sappy ability. One of the fun things about pixel art is trying to make a stronger silhouette and have good posing in a tiny space, and I really like how I made the outline thinner at the end of the strike to make the bolt stand out a bit near the tip. I also like how I handled the anticipation and smears for this animation. It feels pretty bouncy to match with other animations while still having one frame of snappiness to make the strike feel fast. To give this ability synergy, when I programmed the ability on day 24, I made the strike travel through stars. The strike is the shortest range ability in the game, and I think setting up stars lets you reach opponents after you hit them with sprinkles. This ability was pretty odd to program, at least compared to some of the other ones, as all the other abilities are projectiles, but this one is more of a melee attack. It wasn't super hard to add to the game, it's just kind of weird. While I think the version of the strike I made for Devtober gets the idea across, I kind of want to change some things with the ability. I think I want the strike to travel faster across the stars, as well as maybe make a separate sprite for when the lightning collides with stars, stuff like that. I wanted more synergy with the star strike, so on day 25, I animated and programmed the starship ability. I'm saying a star a lot in this video. This one lays down stars in a straighter line than the star sprinkles, but it travels a bit slower. I think this ability could be fun if the player wants to have a long trail of stars for the strike to travel across. With getting a good mixture of day and night abilities, I wanted to design some so the player can make builds that work for any time. So on day 26, I started animating a magic hat ability. The animation looks kinda weird in the editor, but trust me, it makes more sense in-game. I used an animation I had for the pump boom, an older ability, as a reference to make the projectile have a different animation when it rises and falls, which I like because it lets the player know where the maximum height of the projectile is. Maybe I should go back and add that for a couple of other abilities, cause some of them look kinda weird. Anyways, on day 27, I started adding the magic hat to the game. If it is daytime when the hat lands, it will spawn a blank platform, but during nighttime, the top hat shoots out some star sprinkles. I like this ability because it works well regardless of if you want a day or night focus build, and I think that's pretty cool. On day 28, I wasn't entirely sure what ability I wanted to do next. I had a list of ideas and started originally making a leaf shield, though I wasn't entirely sure if I wanted the leaf to be the shield's design, so I started working on a different type of ability. This sprite I drew on day 28 probably won't be in the final game, but I was thinking about making another melee ability like the Star Strike. Though I felt like this didn't really have anything going for it, I wasn't really sure what I would synergize with this idea. So for the last few days of Devtober, I started working on a different ability. I still wanted to add a melee ability to the game, so on day 29, I started animating the Squasher. As the name should imply, it's a hammer. Or is it? I'm saying that because I wrote a kind of dumb joke in the script, and I'm really confused what I was trying to say here. But yeah, it's a hammer. This ability was one of the more difficult animations for the game. I wouldn't say it's as hard as some of the enemy animations from the previous video, though. I guess that's kind of because I planned this one out a lot more. but even still, it felt a lot easier to make. On day 30, I cleaned up the animation a bit and added color. To make the attack more powerful, I wanted to have a good amount of anticipation right before Trix slammed the hammer. Like a few other animations, it looks a little weird in the editor, but when I programmed the ability into the game, as we can see on day 31, it looks pretty clean. There are some edits I want to do for the squasher to make it look more exciting, mostly by giving it different particles, but at the moment I really like how this ability feels. I made the player jump a bit when the hammer starts to swing upwards, just to add a little more movement to the game, since you know this is a platformer, and I really like how that turned out. It kind of reminds me of some of the ground pound abilities in platform fighters. I might need to add some more changes since I'm not really sure where Treaty goes when Trix swings the hammer. I think they just want to get a snack. Sure, yeah, something like that. Kind of like the hand, the squasher doesn't have any apparent time-based ability, which doesn't give it direct synergy, but like the hand ability, because the hammer's slower, players have to get creative with using it. And because there is no 32nd day of October, I finished Devtober. I'm pretty happy with everything I was able to pull off this year. I swear, October is like always has something going on for me. And this year is no different. It was a little bit more busy, but I was able to get a good amount of stuff done on the game, so I'm pretty happy with that. I wouldn't really say I was like super crunched to get stuff done. It's more just like I would do a little bit and then show that off each day. But I still feel like I was able to get a lot of groundwork and just development done for the game, so yeah, pretty cool. I feel like overall, a lot of the development for Trix is going pretty good. I think I said this at the end of my terrain gen video, but I had a lot of the groundwork laid out for Trix, so I had pretty easy process to add abilities or enemies to the game, or just like, you know, more content. And that's cool, because that means development's downhill. And honestly, I'm thinking sometime, maybe in early 2022, there will be a build of the game that has at least like a small amount of content. It won't be like the whole game, but it'll just be something so players can get an idea of what it's like. I can get feedback if there's some ideas that don't work out, and then I can just keep on developing the rest of the game from there. No exact promises if there will be anything during early 2022. Um, that's just kind of purely speculative. But the main reason why I'm saying that is because I don't think there's going to be a whole ton of devlog stuff until I get this first version out. I mean, I'll still do devlog stuff like after this version comes out, but I don't think there's just like a lot of little things I need to work on. There is one big cough cough music that I need to work on, but aside from that, a lot of the groundwork is there. So yeah. I swear I said more stuff. I actually had to re-record this end bit because it just the computer didn't work for it. So I'm trying to remember what else I said. I think that was pretty much it though. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Anyways, yeah, thank you for checking out this video and supporting my game. I hope you have a nice day.